What if the only voice that truly mattered was the one that couldn't speak? What if a child's drawing could bring a powerful man to his knees? This is a story about a little girl, a loyal Labrador, and a courtroom that finally learned to listen. It's a story for anyone who has ever felt invisible, unheard, or powerless. So, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. What if a loyal companion could be the key to unlocking a hidden truth? This is a story about a gentle black Labrador named Hunter, a former military working dog, who became a certified comfort animal. His presence in a courtroom, meant to provide solace, unexpectedly triggered a 4-year-old girl named Maya to speak for the first time in months. Hunter's appearance, and a drawing of him with a man in a police uniform, helped expose a corrupt police captain and bring justice to a child. In the end, the dog that helped unlock Maya's trauma was adopted by her and her foster mother, Eleanor. Hunter, wearing a vest that read Big Brother, became a protector and a symbol of hope for a little girl who had found her voice again. The air in courtroom 7B was thick with tension, a palpable pressure that made it hard to breathe. At the center of it all sat Captain Miller, a decorated police officer with a crisp uniform and a confident posture that conveyed authority. This was a man people trusted with their lives, a pillar of the community. Yet, he was now accused of a profound betrayal. On the other side of the room, dwarfed by the imposing witness chair, was the true heart of the case, a 4-year-old girl named Maya. Her small hand was tightly gripping a faded doll, her eyes were blank, and her lips were sealed. For months, she had not spoken a single word, a silence that felt heavier than any testimony. The defense attorney, a man who seemed to believe every case was a performance, dismissed her as a theatrical stunt. He sneered at her presence, treating her like a prop rather than a person. But Prosecutor Jenkins and Maya's foster mother Eleanor knew better. They knew that Maya's silence wasn't defiance. It was a wall built by trauma. A wall so high, they feared it could never be broken down. Eleanor sat beside Maya, a silent promise of protection, a quiet anchor in the stormy sea of the courtroom. She believed in Maya, in the strength hidden beneath the surface of that fragile, broken child. The prosecution's case was weak, circumstantial, and at a complete standstill. It seemed that this powerful man, this pillar of the community, would walk free. But just when hope seemed lost, a new presence entered the room. The courtroom doors opened again, and a new presence entered. It was Sergeant Morgan, a kind-faced officer, accompanied by a gentle black Labrador named Hunter. Hunter was a former military working dog, now a certified comfort animal, meant to provide solace and ease the tension. But what happened next was the opposite of calm. Maya, who had been motionless, suddenly sat up. Her blank stare snapped into focus, locking onto Hunter. A wave of confusion rippled through the room. Maya slowly rose from her chair, her tiny legs dangling, and pointed a trembling finger. A beat of silence passed, stretching into an eternity. Then, in a voice that was both a whisper and a scream, she uttered 2 words. Not at the officer, not at the judge. She pointed at Hunter and said, "Bad man." The courtroom erupted into a low murmur of disbelief. The defense attorney was quick to seize the moment, a triumphant smirk on his face. He jumped to his feet, gesturing wildly. "Your Honor, this is a clear case of a child's imagination. This proves nothing." But Prosecutor Jenkins wasn't looking at the defense. She was looking at Maya, seeing the memory behind the words. She saw that the fear in Maya's eyes wasn't for the dog itself, but for something the dog represented. Jenkins took a gamble, a risky move that could either win the case or destroy it. "Your Honor," she said, her voice cutting through the noise, "the child isn't identifying the dog. She's responding to a trigger. I believe the dog's presence has unlocked a memory." Eleanor, Maya's foster mother, nodded quietly and handed over the crumpled piece of paper Maya had been clutching. As it was projected onto the screen, the courtroom fell silent once more. It was a simple crayon drawing, a house, a little girl, a man in a police uniform, and a large black Labrador standing beside the man. The man's face was violently scribbled out in red crayon. This was not a doodle, this was a map of memory.
The final piece of this puzzle came with a photo lineup. 5 officers, all in uniform, were presented on easels. The tension was suffocating. Maya's eyes scanned the faces, her expression unreadable, until her gaze landed on the fifth photo. It was a picture of Captain Miller and his K9 unit, a younger Hunter, at a community event. Maya's face crumpled. She pointed her finger, not at the dog this time, but directly at Captain Miller's image. And in a voice louder than before, a voice of pure conviction, she said it again. "Bad man." The courtroom erupted. The lie had been exposed, not by a lawyer's argument, but by the quiet, unshakable truth of a child's memory. The verdict was still out, but the energy in the courtroom had completely shifted. Everyone now knew the truth, even if it hadn't been legally proven. Prosecutor Jenkins, sensing her moment, put Captain Miller back on the stand. He tried to maintain his composure, but Jenkins systematically dismantled his lies. She presented the GPS logs from his police cruiser, which showed he had been at Maya's house for over an hour. The defense attorney sputtered objections, but Jenkins continued, "Your car was parked the entire time." Miller's facade was crumbling, his face a mask of barely contained panic. The real game-changer came from an unexpected source. Detective Marcus Cross, a retired officer who had worked with Miller for years. With a heavy sigh, he took the stand, his conscience outweighing his loyalty. "I couldn't stay silent anymore," he said, looking directly at Maya. Cross revealed a shocking truth. He had discovered a secret, unofficial cabinet, where Miller kept 5 incomplete case files involving children. All of them were marked "resolved without investigation." All of them involved children who were later removed from their homes due to abuse. The final, irrefutable piece of evidence was a grainy security video from a neighbor's doorbell camera. It showed Captain Miller entering Maya's house, without backup, a clear violation of protocol. He stayed inside for over 70 minutes, and when he emerged, he adjusted his uniform, looked around nervously, and drove away. The jury watched in stunned silence. The video didn't just expose a cover-up, it exposed a dark, systemic failure. Maya's courage, combined with a hero's conscience, had brought a powerful man's hidden life into the light. The final days of the trial were a blur of testimony and evidence. Dr. Eleanor Vance, a child psychologist, took the stand to validate Maya's testimony. With a gentle hand and a calm voice, she asked Maya to draw the day she saw the bad man once more. The drawing was heartbreakingly clear. A child hiding. A broken lamp, and tears streaming down the stick. Figure's face. And when Dr. Vance asked what happened, Maya whispered the word that shattered the last vestiges of doubt in the room. "Hit." Then, she looked up, and for the first time, with a powerful, silent gesture, she pointed directly at Captain Miller. The courtroom froze. The jury returned with their verdict, the tension in the room so thick you could cut it with a knife. The foreman, her voice trembling with emotion, read the verdict. "Guilty. Guilty. Guilty." A collective gasp of relief swept through the gallery. Captain Miller sat motionless, the confident mask gone, replaced by a defeated emptiness. It was over. Justice had been served. The court adjourned, but the story was far from finished. In a move that surprised everyone, the police department announced that Hunter, the Comfort Canine, would be officially retired and adopted by Maya and Eleanor. The dog that had unknowingly helped to unlock a child's trauma had become her protector, a symbol of hope. Weeks later, as Maya's adoption was finalized, she walked into the courtroom, no longer silent, but smiling. Hunter trotted happily beside her, wearing a small vest that read, "Big Brother." The journey that began with 2 trembling words had ended with a full, beautiful family. The impact of Maya's bravery echoed far beyond the courtroom. Her case became a national headline, a story of hope and resilience that captivated the country. Prosecutor Jenkins, now a celebrated figure, deflected all praise. "The real hero," she said in an interview, "is a little girl who taught all of us that silence doesn't mean absence. That a whisper can sometimes roar louder than any argument." Inspired by the case, legislation was passed to mandate bodycam footage in all welfare checks. An independent oversight board was created to review complaints against law enforcement. Detective Cross was brought back as a consultant, his conscience finally at peace, his actions inspiring a wave of integrity within the department. Maya's life, once a silent tragedy, had blossomed. Her drawings, once filled with fear, now depicted a happy little girl, a loving mother, and a loyal Labrador, chasing butterflies. On the day her adoption became official, she stood proudly beside Eleanor and Hunter. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, Maya, a little girl who had every reason to stay silent forever, looked around the room and said, "Thank you for listening." Simple words, but they were the most powerful testimony of all. The journey that began with 2 trembling words, "Bad man," had ended with a beautiful, inspiring thank you. Thank you for listening to this story of courage and hope. If this video resonated with you, let us know in the comments below. What do you think about Maya's bravery? Or maybe you have your own story of overcoming adversity? We'd love to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to help us bring more stories like this to light. Until next time, remember that even the smallest voice can change the world.